Looking back, what was a gap in the market where you decided it was time to found Astera Labs?
Well, none of us are clairvoyants, I think, and we couldn't have expected AI to take off like it has over the past 8 years. But back in 2017, we did at least realize and predict that servers, and especially AI servers, which are a little bit different, would need to have very high-speed connections between the brains of the system, the GPUs. And that would only increase over time as AI applications expanded. So we knew that there needed to be some solution to help that data go between the brains of the system. And so we created our first product, which was essentially the nervous system of an AI machine.
If I take you back to 2017, you would remember there were self-driving cars, but there would be a driver behind the wheel because nobody could trust the self-driving car. There were digital assistants, but there would be all these jokes about them not understanding properly or responding not in a very good way. What was very clear to us was this will evolve. The AI will become 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more powerful. And in order to do that, you would need many GPUs, these brains, to talk to each other. And while many companies were focusing on building the brain, nobody was really looking at the connectivity. So we decided to focus on building chips and solutions that would connect all of these brains together.
You left your careers, established careers, and you started this company from the garage. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
For me, the decision was really very simple. Where I would grow in my career at a large corporation was not something that I was really looking forward to. It would involve doing more of what I don't like to do and less of what I like to do. Whereas in Astera or in a private venture, I get to work with these two guys, exclusively. So that was fantastic, and really write the rules of the kingdom of how things needed to be done. And so that freedom was very appealing.
So was there any hesitation from either of you of going from the established career to the startup scene?
Working with these gentlemen, they were trustworthy people, very intelligent, very accomplished, and we really enjoyed working with each other. And so, once you get over the initial hurdle of leaving a secure job, you really embrace the challenge and the idea that, hey, let's see what we can build together. Maybe it will amount to nothing, but unless you try, you'll never know what kind of company and product you can build starting from scratch. And that was the challenge of it, was what enticed me.
Yeah, for me, it was slightly different in the sense that I always wanted to build a company. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved the independence that I would see in people that had their own thing. But it was also a method to it. For me, it was not just about starting a company, it's about creating a successful company. And those two things can be entirely different things. And while we were in National and TI, we built businesses together and we learned how to do it the right way. So when the opportunity came, we embraced it in a way that sort of was in the making for many years. And we never looked back. And look what we created today, a company that's fundamentally changing how connectivity needs to be done for AI, and being the fastest semiconductor company to cross $1 billion in run rate revenue. So I want to say it worked out well for us.
From what I hear, your idea, it took you about 5 minutes to get investors to write you a check. Is that true?
It is absolutely true. I love saying this story where, as first-time entrepreneurs, there are many things you worry about. One of the biggest worry we had was funding. Semiconductor hardware, this is not like software companies. The initial capital has to be in multiple millions of dollars. So what we did was to start off with an investor that is renowned for successful companies and so on. So we decided to start with him, and we outlined what our thought process is. And it so turned out that within 5 minutes he was talking about terminologies that, frankly, I think this also we've shared this many times, where we didn't know, right? I didn't know what pre-money, post-money, liquidation preference, all these terms meant. And I literally remember searching it on my phone, trying to figure out what these terms meant while he was talking about it. So yeah, it was a huge surprise, and we were ready for the long haul because you hear all the stories about first-time entrepreneurs spending months, if not years, trying to raise funds, and for us that happened relatively easy.
And just so that the audience doesn't get the wrong idea that you can make a pitch in 5 minutes and get funded. It did take us a couple of months to actually finally get the handshake. It took a relatively short amount of time, but it was a very intense process of learning all the new terminology, negotiating with investors on what is best, and eventually deciding, hey, it is much more important to get a head start and move quicker than to wait for the perfect amount of investment or the perfect investor and so on. And in hindsight, we are so blessed to have the investors that we got. That was one of the main reasons that got us started on the journey that we are on and has contributed to our success.